Welcome to the Crest Hotel. Put 5 rival werewolf leaders under one roof, and the building turns into a ticking bomb. Cora didn't care about their fangs. She didn't care about their turf wars. She just needed the hazard pay to keep her little brother safe. She survived by keeping her head down and following the rules. But the king in the penthouse didn't care about hotel policy. He didn't want the food on the room service cart. He wanted her, and the beast inside his skull was done waiting. Chapter 1. Cora adjusted her name tag and stared at the trembling boy holding a stainless steel tray. Tim was new. He was 18, gangly, and currently sweating through his crisp hotel uniform. He held a dome-covered platter like it was a live grenade.
"I can't go up there, Cora,"
Tim whispered. He glanced toward the private elevator that led to the VIP floor.
"The guy in the penthouse was growling. Literal growls. He snapped a pen in half just because the front desk asked for his ID.
Cora sighed. She ran the top floor of the Crest Hotel, and she managed a staff of 20. Most days, it involved organizing schedules and fixing billing errors. But during the Shifter Summit, her job turned into babysitting overgrown men with anger issues. "Tim," Cora said, keeping her voice even, "it's just lunch, a turkey club and fries."
"He's an alpha."
Tim insisted, taking a step back.
"The alpha of alphas. I heard the other guests talking. If I look at him wrong, he might rip my throat out."
Cora took the stainless steel tray from Tim's shaky hands. She made sure not a single piece of real silver was on the cart. Shifters reacted to silver like acid, and the last thing she needed was a lawsuit because a werewolf burned his finger on a salad fork. "Go help housekeeping on floor 3. Cora instructed. Tim let out a breath of relief and sprinted toward the stairs. Cora rolled her shoulders. She pushed the heavy room service cart toward the elevator and pressed the top button. The doors glided shut. She watched the floor numbers tick upward. Shifters were nothing but trouble. They brought drama, territorial fights, and a ridiculous amount of noise. But the hazard pay on the VIP floor was luxurious, and Cora needed every single cent. The elevator chimed. The doors opened to the penthouse suite hallway. Thick, dark blue carpet swallowed the sound of her practical black shoes. The walls featured warm wooden panels and muted lighting. Cora stopped in front of room 401. She knocked twice. Crisp, professional silence. She waited 5 seconds before striking the wood a third time, much louder. "Room service!" Nothing. Cora pulled her master keycard from her pocket. She tapped it against the lock. A green light blinked, and the heavy oak door clicked open. She pushed the card inside, navigating the wide entryway. The suite smelled faintly of rain and crushed pine, a scent that had to belong to the man renting the room. "Room service!" Cora called out again, leaving the cart by the kitchen island. The sound of rushing water stopped. A door clicked open down the hall. Cora pulled the receipt from her apron, grabbing a pen to get his signature. She looked up just as Dante walked into the main living area. He was tall, broad shoulders, chest covered in water droplets, and dark hair plastered to his forehead. His eyes were a piercing, vibrant amber. He wore nothing but a single, fluffy white hotel towel wrapped low around his waist. He stopped when he saw her standing by the granite counter. A wicked, arrogant grin spread across his face. He didn't rush to cover up. He didn't apologize. Instead, Dante locked eyes with her, unhooked his fingers from the terry cloth, and let the towel drop to the hardwood floor. He stood there completely bare.
"Right on time,"
he said, his voice a low, rough rumble. Chapter 2. Inside Dante's skull, a wild animal woke up. The beast pacing in his mind had been furious all morning, snarling at the stress of the summit. Now it slammed against his ribs, hyper-focused on the woman standing in his suite.
"Mate,
The word echoed in his head, feral and sharp.
soft, grab her, bed now."
Dante kept his smirk in place. He waited for the human to react. Usually, women blushed, stammered, or ran away. Sometimes they dropped whatever they were holding. He enjoyed the power trip. It was a distraction from the crushing pressure of leading 5 different territories. Cora did none of those things. She didn't gasp. She didn't avert her eyes. She looked at him with the tired, unimpressed expression of a woman who had 100 better things to do. She tapped her pen against the receipt. The price tag for the meal was a staggering sum, a number that could feed a family for a week, but she treated it like a fast food wrapper. "Put some pants on," Cora said. Dante blinked. His smirk faltered.
Excuse me?
"Pants," Cora repeated. She gestured toward the hallway with her pen. "Or shorts, a robe, I don't care, get dressed. Your fries are getting soggy, and I have 3 other floors to check before my lunch break." The wolf in his head let out a rough, barking laugh.
Bossy, we bite. Make her beg. Good girl.
Dante took a step forward, trying to use his sheer size to intimidate her.
You barged into my room.
"I knocked twice," Cora corrected. She slid the paper across the smooth counter. "Sign on the bottom line. Gratuity is included." He crossed his arms, ignoring her demand.
Aren't you afraid of me?
"I'm afraid of health code violations," Cora replied. "Sign the paper." Dante stared at her. She possessed zero fear. Her heartbeat was steady, a calm rhythm drumming in the quiet room. She smelled distinct, a crisp hint of wild plum and warm honey that cut through the sterile hotel air. The fragrance hit his senses and anchored his racing thoughts.
Claim.
The beast scratched at the inside of his skull.
Ours. Tie her up. Claim.
Dante forced his wolf back. He grabbed the towel from the floor, wrapped it around his waist, and stalked over to the counter. He snatched the pen from her hand. Their fingers brushed. A jolt of pure static electricity shot up his arm. Cora didn't flinch, but her eyes widened a fraction before she composed herself. He scribbled his name on the paper and tossed the pen down.
There.
"Thank you. Enjoy your meal." Cora picked up the slip. She turned around and walked out the door, her spine rigid and unbending. The heavy door clicked shut behind her. Dante stood alone in the quiet suite. He looked at the turkey club. He looked at the closed door. A strange, unfamiliar feeling settled over him. It was a relief, sharp and sudden, like a cold breeze on a sweltering day. Someone had just treated him like a regular person.
Bring her back.
The wolf demanded, pacing a circle in his mind.
Now.
Chapter 3. Dante spent the next 12 hours losing his mind. The summit meetings dragged on. Rival pack leaders argued over borders, hunting rights, and ancient grudges. Dante sat at the head of the long conference table, nodding and issuing orders, but his brain was stuck on the woman from room 401. His wolf refused to settle. It kept throwing dirty, chaotic images into his thoughts.
Over the desk. Against the wall. Hear her yell.
When the meetings finally ended at 9 o'clock, Dante retreated to the penthouse. He picked up the landline phone. He needed to see her again. He needed to prove that her calm, unfazed attitude was just a fluke. He pressed the button for the VIP concierge.
I need 6 extra pillows. Goose down only.
10 minutes later, a knock sounded. Dante ripped the door open. It was Tim. The boy looked ready to pass out, clutching a stack of fluffy pillows to his chest.
Your pillows, sir?
Dante scowled. He grabbed them, slammed the door, and tossed them onto the couch. At 11 o'clock, he tried again. He called the front desk.
My ice bucket is empty.
15 minutes later, a different staff member arrived. An older woman holding a plastic bucket with shaking hands. Dante took it without a word. He paced the floor. The clock ticked past midnight. By 2 in the morning, his frustration reached a boiling point. The beast inside him was throwing a tantrum.
Hungry? Want the mate? Call her?
Dante picked up the phone one last time.
Room service.
Sir, the main kitchen is closed.
The tired voice on the other end said.
Find a way.
Dante demanded.
I want a ribeye steak. Raw. Bring it up now.
He hung up. He knew the demand was ridiculous. He wanted to push the staff until the manager had to step in. 30 minutes later, 3 sharp professional knocks echoed through the suite. Dante swung the door open. Cora stood there in her crisp uniform, holding a tray. A raw, thick slab of meat sat on a ceramic plate. "Here is your order," Cora said. She walked past him, setting the tray on the table. Dante shut the door, leaning against it to block her exit.
You work late.
"I work until my shift is done," Cora replied. She pulled out her receipt pad. "Do you need any salt for your raw meat, or do you just prefer the blood?" Dante let out a low chuckle. He stepped closer. He towered over her, letting his alpha presence fill the space.
You think I'm playing games.
I think you're bored, Cora corrected, holding her ground. And you lack a basic sleep schedule,
Bite her neck.
the wolf purred.
Mark her. Most people do whatever I say without question.
Dante murmured, tilting his head. I brought you a raw steak at 2 a.m, Cora pointed out. I'm doing exactly what you asked. Sign the receipt. He stared at her. She wasn't playing hard to get. She was just determined to finish her job and go to sleep. Her pragmatic focus was intoxicating. Dante took the pen, signed his name, and stepped aside.
Good night, Cora.
He said, reading her name tag. Good night, she replied, walking out without a backward glance. Chapter 4. The back office of the VIP floor was small, windowless, and smelled like stale coffee. Cora collapsed into her desk chair. She kicked off her practical black shoes and rubbed her aching arches. The clock on the wall read 3 a.m. Her shift ended at 6. She pulled her phone from her pocket and opened her banking app. The screen loaded, a small spinning circle mocking her patience. When the numbers finally appeared, a wave of cold water washed down her spine. The balance was dismal. She opened the recent transactions tab. Physical therapy for Leo, co-pays for the bone specialist, a custom fitting for his new leg braces. The expenses stacked up, an endless, hungry machine that ate every dollar she earned. Leo was 10 years old. He had a rare bone condition that made his skeleton fragile. Without the heavy braces, his legs would fracture under his own weight. He was a bright, funny kid who loved comic books, and Cora was his only safety net. Their father left years ago. Their mother passed away. It was just the two of them. Cora locked her phone and tossed it onto the desk. She ran her hands over her face, pressing her fingers into her tired eyes. The exhaustion pulled at her muscles, begging her to sleep. But sleep didn't pay the bills. The Crest Hotel offered double pay for anyone willing to work the VIP floor during the Shifter Summit. The hotel management knew the wolves were demanding, loud, and unpredictable. They threw money at the problem, hoping enough staff would stay to keep the guests happy. Cora needed that hazard pay. She needed it for Leo's next set of braces. Her phone buzzed on the desk, a text message from Mrs. Gable, the elderly neighbor who watched Leo overnight.
Leo is asleep. Ate all his carrots tonight. You doing okay?
Cora smiled, typing a quick reply. I'm fine. Thanks for watching him. See you at 7. She put the phone away. She thought about Dante. The alpha of alphas was annoying, arrogant, and clearly used to getting his way. Walking around naked, ordering raw meat in the middle of the night, it was all a power play. A test to see who would break first. Cora stood up. She slid her feet back into her shoes. She wouldn't break. Let the wolves play their games. Let the giant alpha flash his amber eyes and try to scare her. She had a 10-year-old brother counting on her, and no amount of shifter drama would stop her from doing her job. Cora smoothed down her uniform, grabbed her master key card, and walked back out onto the floor. The hallways were quiet. She had 3 more hours to go. Chapter 5. Dante splashed freezing water over his face. The chilled drops ran down his chest and soaked into the waistband of his gray sweatpants. He gripped the edges of the bathroom sink, his knuckles turning white against the marble. The beast inside his mind refused to sleep. It paced a relentless circle behind his eyes, snapping its jaws.
Find the human. Bring her to the nest. Bite her neck. Stop it.
Dante muttered to his reflection. The wolf ignored the command. It flashed memories of Cora from the previous night. The confident tilt of her chin, the way she slid the receipt across the counter, the scent of wild plum and honey that clung to her uniform. The animal wanted to hunt her down and claim her right there in the hotel corridor. Dante grabbed a towel, dried his face, and tossed the cloth into the hamper. He walked out of the bathroom and into the sprawling living area of the penthouse. The morning sun stabbed through the floor-to-ceiling windows, blinding him. He yanked the curtains shut. His head throbbed. A harsh, relentless ache hammered against his skull. He hadn't slept in 3 days. The Shifter Summit demanded total perfection. Alpha leaders from across the country waited for him to show a single moment of weakness. If he let his exhaustion show, they would circle him like vultures. He needed to project strength. Dante slumped onto the leather sofa. He pulled a thick folder of treaties onto his lap. The black text blurred into meaningless shapes. He rubbed his temples, trying to force his brain to work. 3 sharp knocks echoed through the suite. Dante stiffened. He forced his shoulders back, locked his jaw, and shoved the exhaustion deep down. He pasted a fierce, intimidating scowl onto his face. He stood up and stalked toward the entrance, throwing the door wide open. Cora stood in the hallway. She wore her crisp black and white uniform, looking sharp and alert. She held a small plastic tray in her hands. A single dark ceramic mug sat in the middle. Steam rose from the rim, carrying the rich, bitter scent of roasted coffee beans. Dante crossed his broad arms. He glared down at her, channeling his alpha aura.
I didn't call the front desk.
Cora walked right past him. She ignored his imposing stance. She stepped into the living room, set the tray on the glass coffee table, and turned to face him. She didn't tremble. She didn't flinch. "I know you didn't call," Cora said. "You usually ring the concierge at dawn to demand some ridiculous breakfast item just to annoy my staff. When my radio stayed quiet, I figured you were either dead or struggling to stay awake."
I don't struggle.
Dante lied. His voice held a rough, dangerous edge. Cora put her hands on her hips. Her gaze swept over his face, cataloging the dark bruises under his eyes, the tense lines around his mouth, and the rigid posture he forced himself to hold. She saw straight through the monster act. "You look like a walking corpse," Cora stated. "Drop the tough guy routine. It wastes my time and yours." Dante blinked. The fierce scowl slipped off his face. No one ever spoke to him that way. His pack members bowed. The rival alphas postured and sneered. Cora just pointed out the obvious truth and demanded he stop playing games. "Drink the coffee," Cora instructed, pointing to the mug.
I didn't ask for coffee.
"I don't care," Cora replied. "You drink it black. I checked the leftover cups on your breakfast carts the past 2 days. No sugar, no cream. So I brewed a fresh pot in the staff break room down the hall. It tastes better than the fancy machine in your kitchen anyway. Drink it before it gets cold." The feral animal in Dante's head stopped pacing. It let out a low, satisfied purr.
She watches us. She feeds us. Good mate.
Dante walked over to the table and picked up the mug. The thick ceramic warmed his cold palms. He took a slow sip. The dark liquid burned his tongue in the best way possible. It was bold, strong, and tasted like a jolt of pure energy. The harsh pounding in his skull eased a fraction. He closed his eyes and let out a long, ragged breath. A tight knot unwound in his chest. "Better?" Cora asked. Dante opened his amber eyes. He stared at the human woman standing in his room. She wanted nothing from him. She didn't ask for money, power, or protection. She just saw a tired man and brought him a warm drink. He let his broad shoulders drop, abandoning the act completely. The relief crashed over him like a wave.
Yeah,
Dante admitted, his voice softening.
much better. Thank you.
Cora nodded. She pulled a small notepad from her pocket and checked her schedule. "Good. Now sit down and drink the rest of it. You look like you need to talk to someone who won't bow down to you." Dante held the mug tight. He realized she was right. Chapter 6. Dante sank back onto the leather sofa. He kept the ceramic mug cupped in both hands, letting the heat seep into his skin. He watched Cora pull up a chair opposite him. She sat with her back straight, pen in hand, looking like a manager ready to fix a scheduling error. He took another sip of the black coffee. It grounded him. The wild beast in his head settled down, curling up in a corner of his mind to watch the human work. "So," Cora said, tapping her pen against her notepad, "are you going to stare at me all day, or are you going to tell me why the alpha of alphas looks like he wants to jump out a window?" Dante let out a dry chuckle.
The summit is a disaster. I spend 12 hours a day sitting in a conference room with men who want to rip my throat out. They smile, shake my hand, and plot ways to steal my territory. I have to watch every shadow and monitor every conversation.
Cora wrote a quick note on her pad. "Standard office politics. Everyone wants the boss's job. What is the specific crisis today?" Dante leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees. He needed to get the problem out of his head.
Two of the largest packs want to start a war, the coastal wolves and the northern wolves. They share a border along a thick stretch of forest. A river runs right through the middle.
And they both want the water, Cora guessed.
They want the hunting rights.
Dante corrected.
The coastal alpha claims the river belongs to him because the fish feed his pack. The northern alpha claims the forest belongs to him because his ancestors planted the trees. They yell, they bare their fangs. They refuse to compromise on a single inch of dirt.
He rubbed his jaw, frustration seeping into his tone.
If I force a decision and award the land to the coast, the north rebels and stops trade. If I award the land to the north, the coast blocks the shipping routes. If I do nothing, they start killing each other by Friday.
Cora hummed. She didn't look intimidated by the threat of werewolf violence. She just looked thoughtful. She tapped the end of her pen against her chin. Sounds exactly like my housekeeping and maintenance departments, Cora said. Dante stared at her, confused.
Excuse me?
Housekeeping and maintenance, Cora repeated. Last month, they declared war over the heavy-duty utility carts. Housekeeping said they needed the carts to haul dirty sheets from the suites. Maintenance said they needed them to haul tools and paint cans. They screamed at each other in the break room. It became a whole turf war on the third floor. Dante found himself leaning closer, intrigued by her calm logic.
How did you stop them from fighting?
I took the carts away, Cora said simply. Dante raised an eyebrow.
You just took them?
I locked them in a storage closet in the basement, Cora explained. I told both department heads they had to carry everything by hand. Sheets, tools, paint. All by hand up and down the stairs until they figured out a sharing schedule. By the end of their shift, their backs hurt so much they drafted a timeshare contract, signed it, and slid it under my office door. Dante let out a loud, booming bark of laughter. The sound echoed off the high ceiling of the penthouse. The tension drained out of his muscles. His wolf jumped in excitement, pawing at the inside of his skull.
Clever mate, sharp mind, our queen. You punished both sides.
Dante mused, a grin spreading across his face. I gave them a common enemy, Cora corrected. Me. They stopped hating each other because they were too busy being furious at the manager who took their toys. Dante looked down at his treaties. The messy papers suddenly made sense.
The contested forest. I own the deed to the main access highway. It's the only way in or out of that valley for heavy vehicles. If I blockade the road, neither pack gets in.
Cora smiled. It was a small, genuine expression that made Dante's heart kick a steady rhythm against his ribs.
I take the toy away.
Dante continued, the plan forming fast in his mind.
They lose all access to the hunting grounds until they draft a treaty to share the perimeter. They'll both hate me for it, but they'll stop fighting each other to focus on the blockade.
See? Cora said. Leaders get stuck in the weeds. You look at the fangs and the claws. Sometimes you just have to step back and look at the whole hotel. Dante finished his coffee. The bitter taste left a pleasant warmth behind. He felt more awake and more focused than he had all week. He looked across the table at Cora. She treated him like a regular guy fixing a schedule, not a king ruling an empire. The respect she showed was practical, earned, and real.
You're a brilliant woman, Cora,
Dante said, his voice thick with admiration. I'm a tired manager, Cora said, standing up and pushing her chair in. Finish your paperwork, Dante. Go handle your overgrown dogs. If you order raw meat tonight, I charge you triple. She turned and walked out of the suite, leaving Dante smiling at the closed door. Chapter 7. The glass doors of the hotel lobby rotated, bringing a gust of hot city air into the air-conditioned room. Cora stood behind the polished mahogany concierge desk. She sorted a stack of key cards, matching room numbers to guest profiles. The summit brought endless chaos, but she prided herself on keeping the hotel running smooth. Heavy boots thumped against the marble floor. Cora looked up. A group of 5 men walked into the lobby. They didn't stroll, they marched. The man in the front stood a head taller than the rest. He wore a dark leather jacket over a faded shirt. A jagged, ugly scar ran from his left ear down to his collarbone. He had cold, flat eyes that scanned the room like a predator looking for weak prey. The lobby grew quiet. The normal chatter of tourists and businessmen died away. Even the ambient music from the ceiling speakers seemed to fade. A heavy, suffocating tension filled the space. Cora recognized the vibe immediately. These were rival wolves. They belonged to a pack that hated Dante. The animosity rolled off them in dark waves. Tim, the young bellhop, stood near the luggage carts. His hands shook. He dropped a brass handle, and the metal clanged loudly against the marble. The scarred leader snapped his head toward the noise. He bared his teeth, letting out a low, vibrating growl that rattled the lobby windows. Tim froze, his face draining of color. Cora moved fast. She stepped out from behind the desk and walked straight toward the group, placing herself directly between the scarred wolf and the terrified boy. She held a clipboard against her chest like a shield. "Welcome to the Crest Hotel," Cora said, keeping her voice loud and steady. "Name for the reservation?" The scarred man dragged his gaze away from Tim. He looked down at Cora. He leaned in close, sniffing the air near her neck. Cora held her ground, refusing to step back.
"Human."
The man sneered, his breath smelling like stale tobacco.
"I'm Garrett, Alpha of the Ironwood Pack. Give me my keys."
Cora checked her clipboard. "Garrett, you have 3 suites on the 3rd floor. I need a credit card for incidentals." Garrett slammed a black card onto the desk.
"I want a room on the top floor, next to Dante."
"The VIP floor is fully booked," Cora replied without missing a beat. She ran the card through the machine and handed it back. "3rd floor only. And let me review the hotel policies with you, Garrett." The rival Alpha narrowed his eyes.
"Policies?"
"Yes," Cora said, pulling 5 plastic key cards from a drawer. She made sure not to use the ones with silver magnetic strips. "No howling after 10 at night. No destruction of hotel property. If your pack breaks a television or shreds a mattress, the replacement fee goes straight onto this card. A penalty charge applies for bloodstains on the carpets. Do we understand each other?" Garrett let out a harsh laugh. His enforcers chuckled behind him.
"You have a lot of nerve, little human. Dante lets a weak thing like you run his territory."
"I run the VIP floor of this hotel," Cora corrected. "Not the territory. Here are your keys. The elevators are on your left." She dropped the plastic cards onto the counter. She turned her back on the men, dismissing them completely. She walked over to Tim, grabbed his arm, and pulled him toward the staff break room behind the front desk. Garrett scooped up the keys. He glared at Cora's retreating back, his eyes full of malice, before leading his men toward the elevators. Once inside the break room, Cora let go of Tim. The boy leaned against the wall, gasping for air. "Breathe, Tim," Cora instructed. She grabbed her 2-way radio from her belt. She pressed the broadcast button, speaking to her entire staff. "Attention all team members, this is Cora. We have hostile guests on the 3rd floor, Garrett and his crew. Listen to me closely." Static crackled over the radio before she continued. "All junior staff, housekeeping, and room service are forbidden from accessing the 3rd and 4th floors until further notice. Reassign yourselves to floors 1 and 2. If a guest on the upper levels calls for service, route the request to me."
"Cora, you can't take all those shifts."
A voice cracked over the radio. "I handle the VIPs, Cora stated firmly. "No one goes up there but me. Stay out of their way. Don't make eye contact. Don't drop luggage. Keep your heads down and do your jobs." She clipped the radio back to her belt. She looked at Tim. "Go help the kitchen staff wash dishes. Stay off the floor today." Tim nodded rapidly and bolted toward the kitchen doors. Cora smoothed the wrinkles from her uniform skirt. The bad vibes from the lobby crawled up her spine. The rival wolves were here to cause trouble. They wanted to test Dante's security and challenge his rule. She took a deep breath. She had to keep her people safe. She pushed through the break room doors and headed for the staff elevator. She had rooms to check. Chapter 8. Cora pushed the heavy linen cart down the long hallway of the 4th floor. The wheels squeaked a steady rhythm against the carpet. She needed to swap the towels in room 412 before her shift ended. The VIP floor felt deserted. The thick walls blocked out the noise from the city below. She stopped in front of the suite and pulled her master key from her pocket. Before she could tap it against the lock, the door to the stairwell banged open. Garrett stepped into the hallway. He didn't have his enforcers with him. He walked with a lazy, arrogant stride, his dark boots sinking into the plush rug. He spotted Cora and smiled. It was a cruel, sharp expression that made Cora's stomach drop. She ignored him. She tapped the keycard. The light flashed green. Garrett moved faster than a human could track. He closed the distance in a single second. He slammed his large hand flat against the heavy oak door, pushing it shut right as Cora tried to open it. The wood hit the frame with a loud crack. Cora let go of the handle. She turned to face him, keeping her expression blank. "You're on the wrong floor, Garrett," Cora said. "Your suite is downstairs." Garrett leaned his shoulder against the wall, blocking her path to the elevator. He crossed his arms over his chest.
"I wanted to take a walk, scope out the competition. Dante claims this territory is locked down, but he leaves a fragile human unguarded in the halls."
"I'm working," Cora said. "Move your hand so I can clean the room." Garrett leaned closer. His scarred face hovered inches from hers. He took a long, exaggerated sniff.
"You smell like him. You smell like the Alpha. He marks you with his scent, but he doesn't claim you. Why does he keep you around? Are you a pet?"
Cora didn't shrink away. She gripped the edge of her linen cart. "I'm the manager. Step aside." Garrett reached out. His thick fingers grabbed a lock of Cora's hair. The elevator bell dinged at the end of the hall. The metal doors slid open. The temperature in the corridor plummeted. The air turned freezing cold. A dark, terrifying pressure flooded the space, heavy enough to crush bone. Garrett froze. He dropped Cora's hair and whipped his head around. Dante stepped out of the elevator. He didn't look like a businessman today. He looked like a monster. His amber eyes burned with a bright, unnatural light. His jaw clenched, and thick fangs pushed past his bottom lip. He let out a snarl that shook the framed pictures on the walls. His beast took total control. The wolf saw a rival touching its mate. Dante lunged. He crossed the long hallway in a blur of motion. He grabbed Garrett by the throat, lifting the rival alpha clean off the floor. He slammed Garrett against the wall with enough force to crack the drywall. Dust rained down on the carpet. Garrett choked, his hands clawing at Dante's thick forearm. The scarred wolf tried to bare his teeth, but the sheer power of Dante's alpha aura crushed his will. Garrett whined, kicking his legs, his eyes rolling back in submission. Dante pulled his free hand back, curling his fingers into a fist. His claws lengthened, ready to tear Garrett's head from his shoulders. "Dante, drop it!" Cora's voice cut through the violence. It was loud, sharp, and commanding. Dante's fist stopped an inch from Garrett's face. His glowing eyes snapped toward Cora. His chest heaved with rough, jagged breaths, the feral beast demanding blood. "Drop him," Cora repeated. She stepped between Dante and the wall, putting herself directly in the line of fire. She placed a firm hand on Dante's tense bicep. "He hasn't broken a hotel policy yet. Don't make a mess in my hallway." Dante blinked. The bright glow in his eyes dimmed. The human touch on his arm grounded him, pulling the man back to the surface. He looked at Cora, then at the gasping wolf in his grip. Dante opened his hand. Garrett crashed to the floor, coughing and hacking. He scrambled backward, clutching his bruised throat.
"Get off my floor,"
Dante ordered, his voice a lethal rumble.
"before I change my mind."
Garrett didn't hesitate. He scrambled to his feet and ran for the stairwell, slamming the door behind him. The hallway fell silent. Dante turned to Cora. The feral anger still rolled off him in waves. He reached out, his large hands gripping her shoulders. He checked her for injuries, his gaze frantic.
"Did he hurt you? Did he bite you?"
Cora swatted his hands away. She stepped back and straightened her collar. "I'm fine," Cora said, her voice calm. "I told you, I handle my staff and I handle my floors. I don't need a bodyguard, Dante. I had the situation under control." Dante stared at her, stunned.
"He's a rival alpha. He could snap your neck with 2 fingers. You can't fight him."
"I didn't plan to fight him," Cora replied. She grabbed the handle of her linen cart. "I planned to hit him with this cart and run for the service elevator. Stop treating me like a damsel. I have a job to do." She tapped her keycard against the door again. It clicked open. She pushed the cart inside the room, leaving Dante standing in the dusty hallway, completely amazed by her bravery. Chapter 9. Cora wiped her forehead with the back of her wrist. Her overnight shift was supposed to end at 8 in the morning. Instead, the hotel manager called her cell phone at 7:30, begging her to pull a double. Half the daytime staff walked out after Garrett and his ironwood pack entered the lobby. The fear of a territory war sent the employees running for the exits. Cora agreed to stay, demanding triple her usual hazard pay for the extra hours. 10 minutes later, her phone rang again. It was Mrs. Gable.
Cora, honey, I'm so sorry.
The elderly neighbor croaked through the speaker.
My sister in the suburbs took a bad fall down her porch steps. The ambulance just took her. I have to catch the next bus out there. I can't watch Leo today.
Cora felt a cold spike of panic hit her chest. Mrs. Gable, it's fine. Go be with your sister. I'll figure it out. She hung up and stared at the blank wall of her office. She had 0 options. Daycare centers refused to take a child with Leo's bone condition without a dedicated nurse on staff, and a nurse required a staggering sum of cash. She couldn't leave a 10-year-old boy alone in their cramped apartment, especially with his mobility issues. Cora grabbed her master keycard and her 2-way radio. She ran for the service elevator, took it down to the basement parking garage, and hailed a taxi on the street. An hour later, Cora pushed a heavy luggage cart through the hotel's rear loading dock. Leo sat on the flatbed of the cart, hidden behind a stack of clean laundry bags. He wore his thick steel leg braces over his jeans. The metal contraptions locked around his calves and thighs, keeping his fragile bones from fracturing under his own weight. "Keep your head down, Leo," Cora whispered, guiding the cart toward the freight elevator.
"This place smells like bleach and fancy cheese,"
Leo whispered back. He clutched a stack of worn comic books to his chest. His eyes darted around the concrete loading bay, wide with awe.
"Are there really werewolves up there?"
"Just rude men in expensive suits," Cora deflected. She rolled the cart into the metal box and pressed the button for the VIP floor. "And you aren't going to see any of them. You're going to stay in my back office." The elevator hummed and rattled its way up to the 4th floor. Cora checked the corridor. Empty. The dent in the drywall from where Dante choked Garrett earlier that morning served as a grim reminder of the danger. She pushed the cart fast, steering it straight into the staff-only corridor and unlocking her private office. The room was cramped, windowless, and smelled like stale coffee. A worn leather couch sat pushed against the far wall. Cora helped Leo off the cart. He leaned his weight on her shoulder, his leg braces clicking and whirring with each awkward step. She settled him onto the couch and tossed his comic books next to him. "Don't leave this room," Cora instructed, her voice strict. "Keep the door locked from the inside. If you need to use the bathroom, use the private staff restroom attached to this office. Don't let anyone see you." Leo gave a mock salute.
"Got it, boss."
Cora smiled, though her stomach twisted with anxiety. She pulled a spare master key from her desk drawer, handed it to him, and stepped back into the hallway. The deadbolt clicked shut behind her. She smoothed down her black and white uniform. The stakes just skyrocketed. She had to keep the wolves distracted, far away from that specific door. Chapter 10. Dante paced the length of his penthouse. His bare chest radiated a feverish heat. He couldn't sit still. The beast inside his mind refused to sleep. It scratched at the edges of his skull, demanding release. The altercation with Garrett triggered every territorial instinct in his blood. His pack members guarded the lower floors, but the threat of a rival alpha breathing the same air kept Dante's adrenaline surging. Dante stopped near the entryway. He flared his nostrils, pulling the ambient air into his lungs. Beneath the sterile scent of hotel carpet cleaner and crisp air conditioning, he caught it. Wild plum and warm honey. His eyes flashed amber. The feral wolf threw itself against the bars of his mental cage.
Find her, made his close, claim her.
Dante opened the suite door. The hallway sat empty. The dented drywall mocked him, a sign of his slipping control. He followed the scent trail. The invisible ribbon of fragrance led him past the guest suites and straight toward the unmarked door of the staff-only corridor. He pushed the door open. The lighting back here was dim, the carpet swapped for practical linoleum tiles. Cora stood near an open linen closet, organizing a stack of fresh pillowcases. She looked tired, the shadows under her eyes more pronounced than before, but her posture remained rigid and professional. Dante closed the distance. His broad chest rose and fell with rapid breaths. Cora turned, a stack of white cotton in her hands. She jumped, startled by his sudden appearance. "You aren't allowed back here." Dante stepped forward, backing her against the doorframe of the closet. He placed one hand on the wood near her head. He didn't touch her, but his towering frame trapped her in place. The scent of rain and crushed pine rolled off his skin, surrounding her.
You smell like stress.
Dante murmured, his voice a gravelly rumble. "I manage a hotel full of feral dogs," Cora fired back, her chin lifting. "Stress is part of the uniform." The beast purred.
Brave doesn't run, ours?
Dante leaned down, his amber eyes locked onto hers. The magnetism pulling him toward this human woman defied all logic. He wanted to bury his face in her neck. He wanted to mark her skin. He let his gaze drop to her lips. She didn't push him away. Her breath hitched, the steady rhythm of her heart kicking into a faster beat.
I don't want to fight with you, Cora.
Dante whispered, his face inches from hers. He tilted his head, closing the final gap. A deafening crash shattered the moment. The sound echoed up the elevator shaft, a violent explosion of shattering glass and splintering wood that shook the floorboards under their feet. A chorus of savage, vibrating roars tore through the building. Dante ripped himself away from Cora. The romantic tension vanished, replaced by sheer, unfiltered bloodlust. The summit just turned into a war zone. Chapter 11. Cora dropped the pillowcases. The white fabric hit the linoleum floor. Her two-way radio erupted in a burst of static. Tim's panicked voice screamed through the small speaker on her belt.
Cora, the Ironwood pack. They're smashing the lobby. They threw a marble table through the front windows. Blood everywhere.
Dante's jaw locked. His amber eyes blazed with a terrifying, unnatural light. The man disappeared, leaving only the alpha warlord behind. Garrett was testing the perimeter, trying to draw him out and force a challenge in front of the other pack leaders.
They want a fight.
Dante snarled, his fangs pushing past his bottom lip.
I'll give them a slaughter.
Cora grabbed his forearm. The muscles under his skin felt like steel cables. "My staff is down there. You need to stop Garrett before he kills one of my bellhops." Dante looked down at her. The feral rage in his eyes softened for a fraction of a second.
I'll handle Garrett.
He reached out and gripped her shoulders, his fingers digging into the fabric of her uniform.
Listen to me. The violence will spill up the stairs. This floor is the main target. Go to your office, lock the door, put the deadbolt in place, and don't open it for anyone but me. Do you understand?
"I have guests to evacuate," Cora argued, her mind racing.
The guests are wolves. Let them fend for themselves.
Dante barked, a command laced with alpha power.
Lock the door, Cora. Stay out of the blood.
He let go of her and sprinted down the hallway. He moved with a terrifying, fluid speed, bursting through the doors leading to the main VIP corridor. The stairwell door slammed shut behind him, the sound echoing like a gunshot. Cora didn't hesitate. She turned and ran the opposite direction. Her sensible black shoes slapped against the tiles. She reached the door to her back office. She pounded her fist against the wood. "Leo, open the door, now!" The deadbolt clicked. The door pulled open a few inches. Leo peeked through the gap, his eyes wide behind his glasses. Cora shoved her way inside and slammed the door shut. She twisted the deadbolt, threw the security chain into place, and dragged a heavy filing cabinet in front of the frame. The metals scraped across the floor, groaning in protest. Another crash echoed through the building, this one closer. The third floor. Garrett's men were moving up. Cora turned to face her brother. The boy stood near the leather couch, his knuckles white as he gripped the armrest. The heavy steel braces on his legs locked his knees in place, making him look tiny and vulnerable in the dim office light. Chapter 12.
Cora, what's happening?
Leo asked. His voice trembled. He let go of the couch and took a rigid, awkward step forward.
Are the bad guys out there?
Cora rushed to his side. She dropped to her knees, placing her hands on his shoulders to stop him from moving. She checked the leather straps of his braces, ensuring the buckles remained tight against his shins. "Just a disagreement in the lobby," Cora lied, forcing her voice to stay level. "Some guests broke a table. The security team is handling it. Leo looked toward the locked door. The thick wood muffled the noise, but a low, vibrating howl crawled through the air conditioning vents in the ceiling. It was a primal, haunting sound that made the hairs on Cora's arms stand up.
That doesn't sound like a disagreement.
Leo pointed out. Cora pulled him a tight hug. She buried her face in his shoulder, smelling the familiar scent of his generic laundry soap and the metallic tang of his leg braces. She needed to ground herself. If she panicked, Leo would panic. "Listen to me," Cora said, pulling back to look him in the eyes. "We stay in this room until the sirens stop. Once the police clear the building, we're going home. And guess what?" Leo swallowed hard.
What?
"I'm getting triple pay for this shift," Cora told him, forcing a bright smile onto her face. "Triple. Do you know what that means?" Leo shook his head. "It means I have enough cash to cover the bone specialist next week," Cora explained. She kept her tone upbeat, masking the sheer terror bubbling in her stomach. "And it covers the copay for your next surgery. We're going to get those new carbon fiber braces, the light ones. You'll be able to run in the park again." Leo's eyes widened. A small spark of hope pushed the fear away from his features.
The ones from the catalog? The blue ones?
"The blue ones," Cora confirmed, tapping him on the nose. "But you have to be brave right now. You have to sit on this couch, read your comic books, and stay completely silent. Can you do that for me?" Leo nodded. He turned around and shuffled back to the leather couch, his steel braces whining with the effort. He sat down and picked up his comic book, holding it in front of his face like a shield. Cora stood up. She walked to her desk and pulled open the bottom drawer. She shoved aside a stack of old files and pulled out a heavy brass fire extinguisher. It wasn't a weapon, but it was dense, solid metal. She gripped the red handle and moved to stand beside the barricaded door. Outside in the hallway, the sound of heavy boots hammered against the floorboards. The fight had reached the VIP level. Shouts, snarls, and the sound of breaking wood filled the corridor. Cora held the brass extinguisher tight against her chest. She stood between her brother and the door, ready to drop anyone who managed to break through the wood. She'd keep her promise. She'd get Leo his surgery, even if she had to fight every feral wolf in the building to do it. Chapter 13. The lights flickered once. The hum of the central air conditioning sputtered and died. A split second later, the entire hotel plunged into pitch-black darkness. Down in the stairwell, Dante stopped in his tracks. He stood on the landing between the second and third floors. The sudden silence pressed against his ears. A heavy, rhythmic clank echoed from the basement, the backup generators kicking in. A moment later, emergency lights buzzed to life, bathing the concrete stairs in a harsh, bloody red glow. The lobby fight was a fake-out. Dante realized it the second the power cut. Garrett didn't care about breaking marble tables downstairs. He wanted to trap the VIP guests in the dark. He wanted an ambush. 3 men stepped out from the shadows of the floor above. They wore thick leather jackets and dark boots. Ironwood enforcers. They blocked the path to the 4th floor. The man in the center wrapped a thick metal chain around his knuckles. In the red light, the metal gleamed with a dull white sheen. It was pure silver. To a human, it was just jewelry. To a wolf, it was battery acid. The enforcer wore heavy welding gloves to protect his own skin from the burn.
"Going somewhere, Alpha?"
The man sneered. Dante didn't waste time talking. He rushed up the concrete steps. The enforcer swung the silver chain at Dante's head. Dante ducked under the lethal arc. The metal smashed into the cinder block wall, sending a shower of sparks and dust into the air. Dante lunged forward. He grabbed the man by the leather collar, lifted him off his feet, and hurled him down the flight of stairs. The enforcer crashed into his friends, a tangle of limbs and groans tumbling down to the lower landing. Dante kept moving. He took the steps 3 at a time. The threat wasn't down here. The real target was the penthouse. They wanted to steal his rank, and they planned to corner him on his own floor. Up on the 4th floor, the darkness hit Cora's back office like a physical blow. Leo gasped. The springs of the leather couch squeaked as he scrambled backward.
Cora!
"I'm right here," Cora said. She reached out in the pitch black, her hands finding her brother's trembling shoulder. It's just a power outage. The hotel has a backup system. Above the locked door, a small, caged emergency bulb flickered on. It cast a weak red light over the cramped room. Cora could see the whites of Leo's eyes. He gripped his comic book so tight his knuckles looked like polished bone.
They turned the lights off.
Leo whispered, his voice shaking.
The bad guys.
Cora tightened her grip on the brass fire extinguisher. The metal handle felt cold and slick against her sweaty palm. They blew a fuse in the lobby, that's all. The maintenance team will fix it. Outside, heavy boots thundered against the tiles of the staff corridor. The sound of wood splintering echoed through the walls. The ironwood pack bypassed the main elevators. They were kicking in the doors to the supply closets, searching the restricted areas. They were hunting. Cora stared at the barricaded door. The heavy filing cabinet sat flush against the wood. It was a good shield, but it wouldn't hold back a pack of feral wolves forever. If they broke down that door, they'd see Leo. They'd see his leg braces. They'd see a target.
Leo,
Cora whispered, her tone leaving no room for argument. Slide off the couch. Get under the desk. Don't make a sound. Don't move until I say your name. Leo didn't argue. He slid to the floor. His steel braces clicked and whirred as he crawled into the narrow space beneath the oak desk. He pulled his knees to his chest and vanished into the shadows. Cora stepped away from the desk. She marched right up to the barricade. She gripped the heavy brass extinguisher and waited for the monsters to reach her door. Chapter 14. Footsteps hammered down the linoleum hallway. The intruders were getting closer, throwing open doors and tearing the staff rooms apart. Cora's heart hammered against her ribs. She looked at the filing cabinet blocking the door. It offered a solid defense, but it trapped them inside. If the wolves broke through, there was nowhere left to run. Leo was under the desk, cornered. She needed to keep the fight out in the hallway. She needed to draw them away from her brother. Cora shoved her shoulder against the heavy metal cabinet. She gritted her teeth and pushed with everything she had. The metal scraped against the floor, moving just enough to clear the doorway. She unlocked the door, pulled it open a crack, and slipped out into the dim red light of the staff corridor. She pulled the heavy wood shut behind her, making sure the automatic lock clicked into place. She stood alone in the hallway, gripping the red handle of the brass extinguisher. 3 men rounded the corner. They wore faded shirts and dark jeans. The ironwood pack. They stopped when they saw the human woman blocking their path.
Look at this.
The first man sneered, taking a step forward. He flexed his hands. His fingernails elongated, turning into sharp, curved claws.
The manager. Where's your alpha, little girl?
He's busy, Cora said, her voice steady. And this floor is closed. The wolves laughed. It was a cruel, grating sound that bounced off the narrow walls. They spread out, blocking the width of the corridor. They intended to tear her apart and raid the rooms behind her. The leader charged. He closed the distance fast, his jaw unhinging to reveal thick, jagged fangs. He reached out to grab her uniform collar. Cora didn't flinch. She yanked the metal safety pin out of the extinguisher. She lifted the heavy brass nozzle, pointed it dead center at the charging wolf's face, and squeezed the trigger hard. A violent, high-pressure cloud of dry chemical foam erupted from the hose. It blasted the wolf right in the eyes. The thick white powder filled the narrow hallway, expanding like a snowstorm. The chemical tasted like chalk and battery acid. The leader screamed. He clawed at his own face, dropping to his knees. The foam blinded him, burning his sensitive nose and throat. He coughed, gagging on the thick powder. The other 2 wolves stumbled backward, raising their arms to shield their faces. The thick cloud robbed them of their sight and their scent tracking. They choked, swinging their fists blindly in the white fog. Cora stepped to the side, dodging a wild punch. She gripped the neck of the extinguisher with both hands. She swung the heavy, dense bottom of the metal cylinder like a baseball bat. The brass slammed into the side of the second wolf's knee. Bone cracked with a sickening pop. The wolf roared in pain and collapsed, clutching his shattered leg. Cora backed up, keeping her body planted directly in front of her office door. The air hung thick with white dust. She squeezed the trigger again, sending another blast of foam into the corridor to keep them disoriented. Her eyes watered from the chemical sting, but she kept her grip tight. She was just a human, but she held the line. Chapter 15. Dante kicked the stairwell door. The heavy metal hinges snapped. The door flew off its frame and crashed onto the thick blue carpet of the VIP floor. He stepped out of the stairwell. The fourth-floor hallway looked like a nightmare. The emergency red lights cast long, twisted shadows. The dent he left in the drywall earlier that morning sat right in front of him. A dozen ironwood wolves crowded the corridor. They carried silver-plated chains and iron crowbars. They were ripping the art off the walls and kicking in the doors to the guest suites. Garrett wanted to destroy Dante's home before he challenged him for the crown. Dante looked at the invaders. The stress of the summit, the exhaustion, the need to play the polite politician, all of it vanished. He dropped his tight control. He let go of the mental chains holding the beast back. His vision shifted. The edges of the hallway blurred, focusing only on the targets in front of him. His amber eyes blazed like twin suns in the dim light. Thick, razor-sharp claws pushed through his fingertips. His chest expanded, his muscles swelling with raw, primal power.
Kill them.
The wolf snarled in his mind.
Protect the territory. Protect the mate.
Dante didn't shout. He didn't issue a warning. He launched himself into the center of the ironwood pack. He grabbed the closest wolf by the throat and slammed him face first into the floor. The impact shattered the marble tiles underneath the carpet. Before the next man could swing his crowbar, Dante spun and delivered a brutal kick to his ribs. The ribs snapped, caving inward. The invaders realized their mistake too late. They turned to fight, raising their silver chains. Dante moved like a shadow. He ducked a swinging chain, stepped inside the attacker's guard, and drove his claws deep into the man's shoulder. He tore the muscle, throwing the screaming wolf into the wall. Blood sprayed across the expensive wallpaper. Another wolf lunged at his back. Dante caught the man by the arm, twisted it until the joint popped out of the socket, and tossed him aside like a broken doll. He operated on pure animal instinct. There was no hesitation, no mercy. He was the alpha of alphas, and these feral street dogs dared to bring violence to his front door. He tore through them, a whirlwind of claws and fangs, leaving broken bodies scattered across the floor. A loud hiss echoed from the other end of the floor. A thick cloud of white chemical foam billowed out from the staff-only corridor. Dante paused, his chest heaving with jagged breaths. His claws dripped with blood. He smelled the dry, chalky powder of a fire extinguisher. Beneath the harsh chemical stench, he caught a faint trace of wild plum and warm honey. Cora. She was fighting them. The feral beast in his mind roared.
Mate in danger, go.
Dante tossed aside a groaning ironwood enforcer and sprinted toward the staff corridor. The remaining enemies scattered, terrified of the monster charging past them. He plunged into the white fog, ready to rip the head off anyone who dared to touch her. Chapter 16. The white foam hung in the air, a thick, choking blanket that coated the floor and the walls. Cora coughed, wiping the chemical dust from her eyes. She held the empty fire extinguisher in front of her like a shield. Two of the wolves lay on the linoleum, gagging and clutching their injuries. But the third wolf pushed through. He stumbled out of the thickest part of the cloud. His eyes streamed with tears, and his face was coated in white powder, but he kept moving forward. He swung a blind, wild arm. The back of his fist clipped Cora's shoulder. The force of the blow lifted her off her feet. She hit the floor hard, her sensible shoes skidding on the slippery tiles. The brass extinguisher clattered away, rolling out of her reach. The wolf blinked, trying to clear his vision. He stood directly in front of the back office. He didn't look at Cora on the floor. He focused on the locked door. He pulled his leg back and kicked the wood right next to the handle. The door frame cracked. Inside the room, the heavy filing cabinet groaned against the linoleum. "No!" Cora shouted. She scrambled to her feet, grabbing the back of the wolf's shirt. She yanked hard, trying to pull him away. The wolf backhanded her. The hit sent her crashing into the opposite wall. Her head cracked against the drywall. Stars exploded in her vision. She slumped down, struggling to stay conscious. The wolf kicked the door again. This time, the heavy metal latch ripped through the splintered wood. The door flew open, the wood banging hard against the inner wall. The wolf stepped into the dim, red-lit office. He wiped his face, peering into the shadows. He saw the desk. He saw the space underneath. Leo sat huddled in the corner, his knees pulled tight against his chest. His thick steel leg braces caught the red emergency light. He looked tiny. He looked terrified. The ironwood wolf grinned. His fangs gleamed. He found a weak, broken human pup hiding in the alpha's territory.
Look what we have here.
The wolf sneered, taking a step toward the desk. Leo squeezed his eyes shut. He opened his mouth and let out a raw, desperate scream. The sound pierced the walls. It cut through the noise of the fighting, the hissing pipes, and the groaning metal. It was a high, terrified shriek of pure panic. Out in the main hallway, Dante heard the scream. He froze. The feral wolf inside his mind stopped pacing. The bloodlust vanished, replaced by a primal, overriding command encoded deep in his DNA.
Pup in danger.
Dante moved. He tore through the remaining white foam, a giant blur of speed and fury. He reached the open office door in a fraction of a second. He saw Cora slumped against the wall in the hallway. He saw the ironwood wolf reaching under the desk. The beast took the wheel. Dante didn't punch the intruder. He didn't tackle him. Dante grabbed the wolf by the back of the neck, lifted him straight into the air, and threw him clear out of the office. The man soared through the doorway, crashing into the far wall of the corridor with a sickening crunch. He hit the floor and didn't move. Dante stood in the doorway, his chest heaving, his claws out. He stared into the dark office. He locked his glowing amber eyes on the trembling boy hiding under the desk. Chapter 17. Cora slumped against the hallway wall, her visions swimming in a dizzying circle. The sharp crack of her skull against the drywall left a ringing tone in her ears. She blinked hard, trying to clear the black spots from her sight. The dim red glow of the emergency lights pierced through the thick, chalky cloud of chemical foam settling over the floor. She needed to get up. She needed to reach her brother. Inside the wrecked office, Dante stood rigid in the doorway. His amber eyes tracked the shadows. He threw the first intruder out into the corridor, but his feral instincts screamed a warning. The threat remained active. A violent tremor shook the floorboards. The drywall separating Cora's office from the adjacent staff break room buckled. The painted plaster exploded outward in a shower of white dust and jagged debris. A colossal ironwood enforcer crashed through the barrier. He ignored the locked door, using a heavy iron sledgehammer to smash a hole straight through the structural wall. The enforcer stumbled into the red-lit office, coughing through the dust. He dropped the sledgehammer and drew a long, curved hunting knife from his belt. The blade caught the emergency light, gleaming with a deadly silver coating. Dante let out a raw, vibrating roar. The beast took complete control. He lunged across the small room, a blur of muscle and fury, aiming straight for the intruder. The enforcer spun around, raising the silver blade. He knew he couldn't beat the alpha of alphas in a fair fight. He needed leverage. He needed a hostage. His flat, cruel eyes scanned the dim space and locked onto the small shape hiding under the oak desk. Leo shrank back, pressing his spine against the wall. The steel joints of his heavy leg braces clinked together. He hugged his knees, his face pale with terror. The ironwood wolf dove toward the desk, reaching out with a thick, calloused hand to grab the boy by the collar. Dante intercepted the attack. He slammed his broad shoulder into the enforcer's ribs. The impact sounded like two freight trains colliding. The sheer force lifted the intruder off his feet and sent him crashing into the heavy oak desk. The wood splintered under their combined weight. Dante grabbed the wrist holding the silver knife. He twisted the joint with brutal, unforgiving strength. The bone snapped. The enforcer howled in agony, dropping the lethal blade to the linoleum floor. Dante followed up with a devastating strike to the man's jaw, knocking him unconscious before he could take another breath. But the victory came with a terrible cost. During the violent scuffle, the enforcer's heavy combat boot thrashed wildly. The steel-toed heel swung under the desk and collided with Leo's left arm. A sharp, sickening crack echoed through the cramped office. Leo let out a piercing shriek. The sound tore through the quiet room, echoing off the damaged walls. He slumped sideways, clutching his left arm. The fragile bone gave way under the blunt force of the kick, bending at an unnatural, horrifying angle. Dante froze. He dropped the unconscious enforcer. He turned his glowing amber eyes toward the whimpering child. The scent of fresh blood and sheer panic filled the room. The alpha warlord vanished, leaving only a wild animal staring at a broken pup in the shadows. Chapter 18. The feral wolf inside Dante's mind assessed the damage. Human logic didn't exist in this state. There was no concept of hospitals, doctors, or medical bills. The beast viewed the world through an ancient, primitive lens. The territory faced an attack. The pack defended the den. And right here, on the floor of the den, a small pup lay injured. Dante dropped to his hands and knees. He crawled toward the shattered oak desk, ignoring the sharp splinters biting into his palms. Leo pressed himself flat against the corner. Tears streamed down his cheeks, leaving clean tracks through the plaster dust coating his face. He cradled his broken arm against his chest. His breath hitched in rapid, shallow gasps. The pain radiated through his fragile skeleton, sending violent shudders down his spine. Dante stopped mere inches from the boy. His broad chest expanded as he inhaled the scent of the injury.
Pup broken.
The wolf reasoned, the thought echoing like a drumbeat in Dante's skull.
Bones weak. Needs the blood. Fix him.
Alpha venom carried a potent, ancient magic. It possessed the power to accelerate healing, to knit flesh, and to fortify the weak. To the feral beast, the solution appeared simple and mandatory. A leader protects his own. This human child belonged to the mate. Therefore, the child belonged to the pack. Dante reached out. His large, clawed hands moved with surprising gentleness. He gripped Leo by the right shoulder, holding the trembling boy steady.
No.
Leo whispered, his voice a tiny, fragile thread. He squeezed his eyes shut, anticipating the fatal strike.
Please.
Dante didn't understand the human words. He only understood the need to heal. He leaned forward, parting his lips to bare his elongated fangs. He found the juncture where Leo's neck met his shoulder. He didn't hesitate. Dante sank his teeth deep into the boy's flesh. Leo let out a raw, agonizing scream. Dante held him secure, ignoring the boy's frantic struggles. He clamped his jaws down, releasing a heavy dose of alpha venom directly into Leo's bloodstream. The bite burned like liquid fire. The venom surged through the boy's veins, a chaotic rush of dominant shifter genetics overriding the fragile human DNA. The wolf kept its grip tight, ensuring the transfer finished. The process required a steady heartbeat to pump the venom through the entire circulatory system. Dante listened to the frantic rhythm of Leo's pulse, timing his release. He didn't bite to kill. He bit to claim. He bit to cure. After 5 grueling seconds, Dante opened his jaws. He pulled back, his chest heaving with ragged breaths. A small trail of crimson ran down his chin. He sat back on his heels, watching the boy. Leo collapsed onto the linoleum tiles. His eyes rolled back, his body going limp under the overwhelming shock of the venom. The heavy steel leg braces clattered against the tiles. The broken arm rested uselessly at his side. The feral wolf paced in Dante's mind, satisfied. The medicine entered the system. The pup would survive. Chapter 19. Out in the hallway, the sound of Leo's scream acted like a jolt of electricity. Cora snapped her eyes open. The dizziness vanished, replaced by a pure, blinding wave of adrenaline. She pushed herself off the wall, her sensible black shoes slipping on the chemical foam. She scrambled for traction, lunging forward with a frantic, desperate burst of speed. She burst through the splintered doorway of the office. The red emergency lights cast long shadows over the wreckage. She saw the hole in the drywall. She saw the unconscious ironwood enforcer on the floor. Then she saw Dante. The giant alpha knelt over her brother. Dante's broad back faced her. His skin carried streaks of dirt and drywall dust. He leaned away from the boy, wiping a smear of fresh blood from his mouth. Leo lay motionless on the floor, a dark stain spreading across the collar of his shirt. Cora's heart stopped. A sound ripped from her throat, a raw, guttural wail of absolute agony. She didn't see a protector. She saw the monster Garrett warned her about. She believed the wild beast lost control and killed the only family she had left in the world. She didn't reach for a weapon. She charged with her bare hands. Cora slammed into Dante's back, wrapping her fingers in his dark hair and yanking hard. Dante let out a startled snarl, twisting around to face his attacker. His amber eyes blazed, ready to strike down the threat. Cora didn't care about his claws or his fangs. She pulled her fist back and punched him dead center in the chest. She hit him with every ounce of grief and fury she possessed. The physical strike carried the weight of her protective soul. Her knuckles connected with his sternum, a solid, heavy blow. The impact acted as a circuit breaker. The connection from his chosen mate sent a violent shockwave through Dante's nervous system. The feral haze shattered in an instant. The glowing amber light vanished from his irises, returning them to their normal, dark, human shade. His claws retracted into his fingertips. The wild animal retreated back into its mental cage, locking the door behind it. Dante gasped, stumbling backward. He hit the wall and slid down, grabbing his head. Human logic crashed back into his brain, overwhelming his senses. He looked at his blood-stained hands. He looked at the shattered desk. Then, his gaze fell on the 10-year-old boy bleeding on the floor. Horror hit Dante like a speeding truck. He remembered the bite. He remembered the taste of the venom. He realized he just sank his fangs into a fragile human child, a child with a severe medical condition. The venom carried an immense physical toll. Humans rarely survived the aggressive genetic rewrite. "What did you do?" Cora screamed, tears streaming down her face. She dropped to her knees beside Leo, pressing her hands against the bite mark on his shoulder. "What did you do to him?" Dante couldn't speak. The guilt choked him. He pressed his back against the wall, staring at the nightmare he created. He tried to protect them, and instead, his beast delivered a fatal blow. Chapter 20. Cora pressed her palms flat against Leo's shoulder. The blood soaked through his cotton shirt, warm and sticky. She expected to feel a weak, failing pulse. She braced herself for the worst, her chest heaving with ragged sobs. A strange, intense heat radiated from the wound beneath her hands. It felt like a fever breaking. The bleeding stopped abruptly, the crimson flow halting as if an invisible tourniquet pulled tight around the veins. Cora pulled her hands back, confused. Leo took a sudden, deep breath. His small chest expanded, pulling in a giant gasp of air. His eyes snapped open. "Leo!" Cora gasped, leaning over him. The boy didn't cry. The terror faded from his features, replaced by an expression of pure shock. He looked down at his left arm. The limb lay bent at an unnatural angle from the enforcer's kick. A loud, popping sound echoed in the quiet room. Cora watched in stunned silence. The broken bone shifted under the skin. It moved on its own, snapping back into its natural, unbroken shape. The severe bruising faded from purple to yellow to normal flesh in a matter of seconds. The venom acted like a team of microscopic surgeons, repairing the damage with terrifying speed. Leo flexed his fingers. He rotated his wrist. The pain vanished completely.
Cora,
Leo whispered, his voice steady. He sat up, pushing himself off the linoleum floor with his newly healed arm.
it doesn't hurt.
He looked down at his legs. For his entire life, a dull, chronic ache lived inside his bones. Every step required effort. Every movement brought the risk of a fracture. Now, the ache sat silent. A surging, boundless energy rushed through his muscles. Leo reached down to his right leg. He grabbed the thick leather strap securing the heavy steel brace to his calf. "Leo, stop! Don't take that off!" Cora panicked, reaching out to stop him. "Your legs will snap. You can't support your own weight."
They feel different.
Leo insisted. He ignored her warning and unbuckled the top strap. The thick leather gave way. He moved to the bottom buckle, snapping it open. He repeated the process on his left leg, tearing the heavy steel contraptions away. He kicked the metal braces aside. They hit the filing cabinet with a loud clang. Cora held her breath, waiting for tragedy. Leo placed his bare feet flat against the cool tiles. He gripped the edge of the broken desk and pulled himself up. He stood tall. His knees didn't buckle. His shins didn't fracture. He let go of the desk and took a step forward. Then another. He walked across the room with smooth, effortless balance. The bite didn't kill him. The aggressive shifter genetics hunted down the rare bone disease and destroyed it, rewriting his DNA to match the strength of a wolf. Cora covered her mouth with her hands, tears of sheer disbelief spilling over her cheeks. Her little brother stood on his own 2 feet, healthy and whole. Against the far wall, Dante watched the miracle unfold. The heavy, crushing guilt evaporated, leaving behind a profound sense of awe. His feral wolf knew exactly what it was doing. It fixed the pup. It secured the family. Leo looked at his hands, then turned toward Dante. A wide, bright smile broke across the boy's face. The nightmare ended. A new life just began. Chapter 21. Cora stayed frozen on her knees. She watched her 10-year-old brother pace across the cramped, red-lit office. Leo moved with a strange, fluid grace. He didn't drag his feet. He didn't wince in pain. He stepped over the shattered pieces of the oak desk with perfect balance. The thick steel leg braces sat discarded against the metal filing cabinet, useless relics of a past life.
I feel strong.
Leo whispered, looking at his small hands. He curled his fingers into fists.
I don't feel tired anymore.
Dante stood against the cracked drywall. His broad chest heaved. The dirt and plaster dust clinging to his skin highlighted the brutal reality of the fight. He stared at the boy, his human mind finally catching up to the feral animal's actions.
He survived,
Dante said, his voice a rough, gravelly rasp. He pushed himself off the wall and took a slow step toward the center of the room. Cora snapped her head up. The shock began to wear off, replaced by a desperate need for answers. She stood up, putting herself between Dante and her brother. You bit him! Garrett warned me about the bite. He said human bodies reject alpha venom. He said it burns them from the inside.
Garrett is right.
Dante admitted. He held his hands up, showing his empty palms.
99 times out of 100, a human child won't survive the genetic rewrite. The venom is too aggressive. It destroys the weak cells before it can build new ones.
Then why is my brother standing? Cora demanded, her voice shaking. She pointed a finger at Dante's chest. Why is his arm healed? Dante looked at her. He needed her to understand the sheer, terrifying luck of the situation.
Because the full moon reached its peak just before dawn, Cora. You can't see the sky from this windowless room, but the lunar pull remains at its maximum. The moon drags our oldest, most primal magic to the surface.
Cora frowned, trying to follow his logic. Magic?
Instinct.
Dante corrected.
When I heard Leo scream, I dropped every single barrier in my mind. I let the feral beast take the wheel. I didn't bite him with human intent. I bit him with the pure, unfiltered soul of a wild wolf. The beast recognized a broken pup. It didn't bite to infect. It bit to cure. Combined with the power of the full moon, the venom bypassed the rejection. It's a rare phenomenon, a genuine miracle.
Cora turned her head. She looked at Leo. Her brother beamed a bright, fearless smile. The chronic pain that plagued his entire childhood vanished. He was a shifter now. He belonged to a dangerous world, but he was alive, and he was whole. Heavy boots pounded against the linoleum in the hallway. Dante shifted his stance, stepping in front of Cora. He raised his guard, ready for another ironwood attack. A tall man with a buzz cut burst through the splintered doorway. He wore a dark suit, his tie ripped away. He stopped short when he saw Dante. The man lowered his head, exposing his neck in a clear display of submission.
Alpha.
The man breathed, panting hard.
It's Briggs. The lower floors are secure. The ironwood pack broke rank. We captured Garrett in the stairwell. He's in chains.
Dante let his arms drop. The immediate threat of the ambush ended. He locked his jaw, his amber eyes flashing with authority.
Briggs,
Dante commanded, his tone leaving no room for argument.
gather 5 of our best fighters. You station them outside this door. You guard this human woman and this young pup with your lives. If anyone from a rival pack even looks at this hallway, you end them.
Briggs nodded. He didn't question why the alpha of alphas cared about a hotel manager and a kid. He backed out of the room to execute the order. Dante turned back to Cora.
Stay here with Leo. I need to clear the rest of the floor.
Go, Cora said, her voice steady. She placed a hand on Leo's shoulder, pulling the boy close. Dante gave her one last look before turning and stepping out into the ruined corridor. Chapter 22. An hour later, the harsh red emergency lights flickered and died. A loud hum vibrated through the floorboards, and the bright, sterile white bulbs of the main power grid surged back to life. Dante stood in the doorway of room 401. The penthouse suite was a disaster zone. The ironwood enforcers trashed the place before Dante tore them apart. The expensive leather sofa lay in tatters, the stuffing pulled out and scattered across the dark blue carpet. The glass coffee table sat in a million jagged pieces. Framed artwork hung crooked on the walls, the canvases slashed by silver blades. He walked inside, his bare feet crunching over the broken glass. He ignored the mess. He felt drained, hollowed out by the adrenaline crash. A soft knock echoed from the open doorway. Dante turned. Cora stood in the hall. She washed the white chemical powder from her face. Her black and white uniform was wrinkled and stained with plaster dust, but she looked as sharp and composed as ever. "Briggs is downstairs with Leo," Cora said, stepping into the ruined suite. She kept her hands in her pockets, surveying the destruction. "He set up a perimeter in the executive lounge. Leo is eating a stack of pancakes. He claims he has the appetite of a wolf." Dante let out a tired, breathless chuckle.
He'll eat you out of house and home. Shifter metabolisms run hot.
Cora walked further into the room. She stopped near the kitchen island. She looked at Dante. Blood smeared his knuckles. He looked like a warlord who just conquered a city, but his posture sagged. Dante couldn't hold her gaze. The weight of the night crashed down on his shoulders. He walked to the center of the living room, surrounded by the torn furniture and shattered glass. His knees buckled. He dropped to the carpet. He let his broad shoulders slump forward. He rested his hands on his thighs, bowing his head. The great alpha of alphas surrendered to the floor of a wrecked hotel room. "Dante?" Cora asked, her voice tight with concern. She took a step forward.
Don't.
Dante whispered, keeping his head down.
Stay there. Just listen to me.
Cora stopped. She crossed her arms, waiting.
I owe you the truth.
Dante started, his voice a low, rough rumble.
You saw what happened out there. You saw the violence. You saw the monster. I tell the other pack leaders I possess perfect control. I tell them I'm civilized.
He squeezed his eyes shut.
It's a lie. The beast inside my head is broken. It's wild. It doesn't speak in full sentences. It barks demands. It's chaotic, feral, and loud.
Cora didn't interrupt. She listened to the pain cracking his voice.
When you brought me that room service cart on the first day,
Dante continued, forcing the words past the lump in his throat.
the animal woke up. It wanted you. Not romance, not polite conversation. It wanted dirty, rough, possessive things. It fed me kinky, wild thoughts every single time you walked into a room. It begged me to pin you against a wall. It begged me to mark your skin.
He gripped the fabric of his sweatpants, bracing himself for her disgust. He laid all his dark, secret shame out in the open.
I fight it every day.
Dante confessed, his voice dropping to a whisper.
I lock it in a cage, but tonight I let it out. I let it bite your brother. I let it tear men apart. You should pack your things, take Leo, and run far away from this territory. Because I'm not a king, Cora. I'm a monster with a crazy animal in my skull.
Silence stretched across the ruined suite. Dante waited for the sound of her sensible shoes walking out the door. He waited for the rejection. Instead, he heard the soft crunch of broken glass as she walked toward him. Chapter 23. Cora stopped right in front of Dante. She looked down at the towering man kneeling on the torn carpet. She thought about the past 2 days. She thought about the ridiculous room service demands at 2 a.m. She remembered the way he drank his black coffee, the dark bags under his eyes, and the exhaustion masking his face. She pictured the terrifying speed he used to hurl an intruder away from her brother. He possessed a wild, demanding beast in his head, a beast that wanted her in the most primal, unfiltered way possible. Cora didn't feel fear. She felt a strange, deep spark of pure heat ignite in her chest. She reached down. She grabbed the waistband of his clothes and the thick strands of his dark hair. She pulled upward with a sharp, demanding yank. Dante gasped, startled by the sudden grip. He let her pull him up. He stood to his full height, towering over her, his amber eyes wide with confusion. He expected a slap. He expected a scream. "I run the VIP floor of a hotel filled with feral men," Cora stated, her voice steady and fierce. She kept her grip tight on his hair, forcing him to look down at her. "I deal with broken pipes, screaming chefs, and shattered marble tables. I handle chaos for a living, Dante." Dante stared at her, his breath catching in his throat. "You think a loud voice in your head scares me?" Cora asked, her chin lifting. "You think you can chase me away by telling me you have dirty thoughts? I saw you save my brother tonight. I saw you risk your territory to protect a boy you barely knew. You aren't a monster." The feral wolf in Dante's mind stopped pacing. It stood at attention. It listened to the human female claim her ground.
Queen.
The beast purred, a deep rumble echoing behind Dante's eyes.
Ours.
Cora let go of his hair. She slid her hands down to his broad shoulders, tracing the heavy muscles coiled under his skin. "You want to pin me against a wall? You want to play wild games? Fine. But you do it because I let you. You do it because we're equals." Dante let out a ragged groan. The last chain holding his control snapped, but this time, it wasn't violence breaking free. It was pure, unadulterated devotion. He wrapped his thick arms around her waist, lifting her clean off the floor. Cora gasped as her feet left the carpet. Dante crushed his mouth against hers. The kiss was a collision. It held the desperation of the battle, the relief of the miracle, and the intense, kinky fire the beast begged for all week. Dante tasted like dust and raw power. Cora tangled her fingers in his dark hair, kissing him back with a fierce, demanding rhythm. She matched his heat, proving she could handle the alpha of alphas. Dante backed her up. Her shoulders hit the intact wall near the kitchen island. He pressed his heavy frame against her, letting her feel the raw strength he kept hidden. He broke the kiss, burying his face in the crook of her neck. He breathed in her scent, the fragrance anchoring his wild soul.
"You're mine."
Dante mumbled against her skin, his voice thick with a possessive growl. "We belong to each other," Cora corrected, her chest heaving. She ran a hand down his back. "Now, put me down. We've got a brother to check on and a hotel to clean up." Dante chuckled. The sound vibrated against her collarbone. He lowered her slowly, letting her sensible shoes touch the floor. He stepped back, his amber eyes glowing with a calm, settled light. The beast was finally quiet. The beast was happy. Chapter 24. The executive lounge on the second floor smelled like maple syrup and burnt coffee. Dante pushed the heavy glass doors open, keeping one hand firmly planted on the small of Cora's back. They walked into the room together. The surviving members of Dante's pack filled the lounge. They sat on the plush chairs and leaned against the walls, wrapping bandages around cuts and nursing bruised ribs. When Dante entered, every single wolf stood up. They dropped their heads, exposing their necks in total silence. They offered their respect to the alpha who defended the den. In the center of the room, Leo sat at a large mahogany table. A giant plate of half-eaten pancakes sat in front of him. Briggs stood right behind his chair, arms crossed, guarding the boy like a prized treasure. Leo dropped his fork when he saw Cora. He jumped out of the chair. He ran across the room. He didn't stumble. He didn't drag a heavy steel brace. He moved with the fast, agile speed of a young wolf. He crashed into Cora's legs, wrapping his arms around her waist. Cora dropped to her knees, hugging him tight. She buried her face in his shoulder. She felt the strong, steady pulse of his new life. The terror of the night washed away, leaving only pure, overwhelming relief.
I ate 5 pancakes,
Leo announced, pulling back with a giant grin.
Briggs said I have to eat a lot of meat now. He said I get to learn how to run in the woods.
Cora laughed, wiping a stray tear from her cheek. We'll figure all of that out, Leo. I promise. Dante stepped forward. He placed a large protective hand on Leo's head, ruffling the boy's hair. He then turned to face his pack. The room fell dead silent. The wolves waited for their leader to speak.
Garrett's in chains,
Dante announced, his voice carrying the deep, resonating boom of his alpha aura.
The Ironwood pack is broken. They challenged our home, and they lost. Tomorrow, I'll address the summit. I'll lay down the new laws. But tonight, you all look at the people standing beside me.
Dante reached down and pulled Cora to her feet. He kept her hand locked tight in his grip.
This is Cora,
Dante declared, his amber eyes sweeping over his soldiers.
and this is Leo. They aren't guests, they aren't staff. They're my pack. They fall under my ultimate protection. You treat them with the exact same respect you give to me. Do you understand?
Yes, Alpha.
The pack answered in unison, a low, rumbling chorus of loyalty. Dante nodded. He turned to Briggs.
Bring a car to the rear loading dock. A secure SUV. We're leaving the hotel.
Briggs snapped a nod and ran for the service elevator. Cora looked at Dante, raising an eyebrow. Leaving? My shift isn't over. I have a ruined penthouse to write a damage report for,
The hotel management can deal with the damage.
Dante said, a wicked spark returning to his eyes. He leaned down, pitching his voice so only she could hear.
I claimed you in front of my pack. The war is over. The pup is safe. Now I need to take you somewhere quiet. My wolf waited all week, and he refuses to sleep on a broken couch.
Cora felt a flush of heat rise to her cheeks. She looked at his broad chest, the smirk playing on his lips, and the promise of wild games hiding in his gaze. She didn't argue. Grab your comic books, Leo, Cora ordered, turning to her brother. We're going on a road trip. Leo cheered, grabbing his stack of books from the table. Dante led them out of the lounge. They walked down the quiet hallway, leaving the chaos behind. They survived the summit, the ambush, and the feral beast. Now they walked toward a new life, ready for whatever the dark woods held next. The end. That is the end of the hotel summit, but the fire between Dante and Cora is just getting started. If you want to hear the spicy continuation of their story, I have 2 bonus chapters waiting for you. In this exclusive epilogue, the Alpha finally gets his queen alone in the woods, and the beast is done holding back. You can find Chapter 25 and Chapter 26 right now on my Patreon. It is raw, it is wild, and it is the conclusion you've been waiting for. Click the Patreon link in the description below to join the pack and listen to the rest of the heat. If you loved this story and want to support my work, you can also buy me a coffee. Your tips help me keep these stories coming and keep the quality high. Check the support link in the description to show some love. Thank you for listening, and I will see you in the next story.